Is everybody ready? We're now live with the feed, so we're going to start the meeting. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a special committee of the whole meeting with one item on the agenda, and that's discussing the general budget, the special revenue funds, and the enterprise funds. And we have a list here. We'll call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, October 10th, 2023. The time is 3 p.m. We have another meeting, an assessment hearing at 5 p.m. and a council meeting scheduled for 5:30 p.m. So we're going to try to get through this without any encumbrances, and so the city can continue to work on the budget moving forward toward a final levy to be established on December the 12th. So the agenda is as follows. If you do not have a copy of the agenda, we'll be talking about the general fund, which is the general levy, which supports these funds. And that's the general government, public safety, street and highways, culture and recreation, miscellaneous, which will be changed, economic development, and capital outlay. The second part of the budget discussion is the special revenue funds, which consists of the Lakes Beautification, the Tennis for All facility, the Arlington Moisey Event Center, the ambulance service, and VEDA, the Virginia Economic Development Authority. And the last line, number 3, are the enterprise funds, Washington Manor, solid waste recycling, golf course, sewer, and clinic capital lease. And staff did distribute some additional information regarding some of the things we're going to be discussed today as it relates to our efforts to try to lean out this budget and come to a consensus on a final levy. And so we'll be diving down into this at length. And with this is the first time we're going to be providing this entire budget discussion, and we'll continue to move forward with that as we progress. So we all have before us the information that's provided by staff, and in addition to that, there's a list of column 1, 2, and 3 that's been distributed to staff, from staff, which are the proposed city budget cuts and revenue increases that are being suggested for us to consider. So that being said, we'll turn this over to our Finance Director, Sherry Erickson. Sherry.
Thank you, Mayor. Since I'm just getting back from vacation, I believe Britt actually compiled this report and the agenda. So we do have 3 different scenarios here, one at 21%, one at 15, 12, and 10. And we can go through those, and I will turn it over to Britt so we can walk through it.
As requested at the last meeting, it was directed to prepare what the levy dollar amounts would be at the 21, 15, 12, and 10%, and that's page 2, as you'll see. Page 3 is the proposed city budget cuts and revenue increases. These are all the things that we have received to date that we've gotten by email or we've gotten from citizens in alphabetical order, not in any order other than alphabetical. The items that are italicized in that list on page 3 are not general fund. They are special revenue funds or enterprise funds. Then as we start diving down, it was asked that we expand when we do the budget, we expand the headings. So we did that. So on the page 4, you'll see the general fund expenditures broken down not only by the headings, but also by what's underneath each heading. So general government includes city council, publications, ordinances, mayor, its administration, et cetera. And then these start going into the budget sheets on page 6. So if we can start with general government first.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Under general government, the first one, city council. Page 6.
Okay. Questions, comments? Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. And I didn't have time to run down earlier, but on my year-to-date, it does not add up to a total of 51,000, or if you divide that by 6 of us, my year-to-date does not add up, because it's once a month the counselor gets paid, correct?
Yes, once per month.
Yep, so I'm just curious where that the current, I guess, the current budget year, that's the budget, but when I did like what our year-to-date is, because we only have, what, 3 more months left?
Special meeting pay would be in there also.
Okay, so that includes special meeting pay? Correct. So at this point, what I would say to cut some of that down is I would reduce special meeting pay. That would be my recommendation. And then, I don't know if there's any other questions that I had on that, but I just wanted to know if we're budgeting for the following year based on this current year, that, because the salary stays the same, but the special meetings may go up or down, so if that would be eliminated, it would just be based on whatever the council gets per month. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so maybe we could look at what that savings would look like. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Paulson. I would concur that you're starting out with the city council under this scenario, the suggestion of the reduction of special meeting pay for councilors and the mayor. I certainly concur with that. In fact, I would go so far as to eliminate any special pay that the councilor or the mayor receives. The only stipend that you receive, of course, is your monthly allotment. And so any other special pay, no matter how many meetings we have, is not compensated. It's part of your overall monthly salary, which is $500 for the mayor prior to that's gross salary, and $300 for the council as gross salary, and that would cover the costs associated whether you have 2 meetings a month, which we do, city council and the committee of the whole, or we have 10 meetings a month. It'll be the same. So I would be amenable moving forward to eliminate all special pay for the council and the mayor. Any other questions, comments from the rest of the council? Councilor, hang on a sec.
Motley.
No. I'm sorry, Councilor Motley.
Oh, yeah. I would also be totally fine with that, so I just wanted you to be aware of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Any other questions, comments from the council with respect to this item? Councilor Paulson.
And then, I don't know, if we're looking at talking about reductions right now, could travel expense be eliminated and mileage reimbursement be eliminated also? That if anyone wanted to attend any of the conferences, that it would come out of the counselor's pocket and no mileage reimbursement. I would be comfortable with that. I don't know what the rest of the council feels like, but I'd like to put that out there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
So I just want to be the realistic voice that sits here, that this is a job. This is something that I have chosen to do, but I also, if it were up to me to finance my trainings and my mileage and stuff, I'm going to be an ignorant council because I cannot afford to drive to the cities for a training. If we're looking at eliminating payment for what we do here, we're actually looking at eliminating the voice of people who struggle. I don't have an unlimited amount of resources to do city council work. I do not have an unlimited amount of time. When I go somewhere, I have to pay a babysitter or I have to have family if I'm going to training. When I first started, my bank account actually went negative because some paperwork wasn't filled out, and we drove to the training for first-time counselors was in Mankato, and the hotel we were staying at charged my account $150 hold, as many of you know hotels do, and I had zero money to buy gas to get back home. That was obviously before reimbursement. So I really want to be cautious about, if we want people to sit in these seats, we need to be respectful of the people who we want to be sitting in these seats. For years and years and years, people sitting here were landlords and business owners and bar owners, that kind of stuff. And I don't bring that perspective. I bring a part-time substitute teacher perspective that struggles paycheck to paycheck. And I just want to make sure everybody understands that this isn't fun money for me. This isn't extra money for me. I do my job and I do it well, I think, and I take it seriously. But it's also a job When you have people do things for free, it takes value away from what we're doing. The special meeting that we're talking about is $35 a meeting. So to be quite honest, $35 is not going to solve our budget crisis. I'm willing to give up $35 as a token, but quite honestly, that's not going to solve for the whatever the difference is. So that's the other side of that coin as we're looking forward. Not reimbursing mileage, then I would hope that the city has vehicles. I'd be happy to drive a city vehicle to a training. No problem whatsoever, and would be happy to do that moving forward. But it's never really been an option that I've been aware of. But moving forward, the other thing is that we often go to trainings as a group, but we have to be very careful of traveling together because of open meeting laws. So there may be some potential savings there, but on the other hand, the perception that a couple of counselors are spending 3 hours in a car together, that could be a challenge as well. So just bringing that perspective to this specific item as we're moving forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Question for you, Sherry, just for clarification for the general public and those who are listening at home. With respect to the salary of the city council and the mayor, aside from the monthly stipend and the $35 for a extra special pay, is there's $100 that is also earned for each for the committee of the whole meeting and $100 for the council meeting? Is that correct?
I believe so. Pam, you do the payroll for them? I believe that Counselor Jorgensen, a few years back, increased that.
That's right. And so the purpose of the raise way back then was in the event there was some additional, we eliminated committee meetings, so we wouldn't have, if you had 4 or 5 committee meetings a month or by each different committee that's assigned, it would be about $36,000 annually. So to negate the $35 for every meeting we have, there was a motion that was changed that the council would receive, and the mayor, $100 for the committee of the whole meeting and $100 for the council meeting, and during the course of the committee of the whole meeting, you would list, instead of a separate finance committee, street and alley, building and grounds meeting, it would all be encompassed into one meeting on the first Tuesday of, first and third Tuesday every month, and the council meeting second and fourth Tuesday. Councilor Johnson.
We do not get an extra $100 for our city council meetings at night. It's only for the committee of the whole meetings.
Okay.
The typical, because, so we make $300 as counselors for the month. That's our stipend. We get $100 for each committee meeting. So in general, each counselor makes $500 a month. That's our flat rate. And then if there's a special meeting that's and it doesn't account for necessarily other committee meetings. It doesn't mean meetings that I'm going to Britt's office for. It doesn't mean the airport commission I'm on. So my base pay is $500 a month if I attend the committee of the whole meetings. If I'm not here, I don't get the $100. And I know this because I live paycheck to paycheck. I know exactly how much money is coming into my account every month and where it goes. So rarely do we get too many $35 a month extra meetings. So I apologize for correcting you, Mayor, but I know how much I get every month and I know where it comes from because I look at my stubs. Thank you.
No, thank you for the correction. It is $200, but it isn't for the council meeting. $100 for each committee of the whole meeting, which is 2 committee of the whole meetings a month, which equates to $200. So $500 gross stipend for the council, and it would be $700 a month gross salary for the mayor. So thank you for that clarification. So in addition to that, when we're talking about the travel pay and the reimbursement rates, I'm all for if you want to go to a seminar or a school or a conference, I think that would behoove us to at least send one counselor on those two, whether it's the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities or the League of Minnesota Cities within the state of Minnesota, and bring back all the information, setting all the counselors and the mayor at their if they're available to go to those things. I can understand that. But as far as travel pay goes, if you're not using a city vehicle, you know, a city councilor or the mayor, with all due respect, an elected official, if they're using their own vehicle, at the very least, if they're traveling to Minneapolis, Rochester, somewhere else, at the very least, they should get some mileage reimbursement for the costs associated with their travel if they're not using a company vehicle. So the travel reimbursement, you know, is minimal with respect to the mileage, but it's the hotels and the conference fees that add up as well. So looking at that, I'm amenable, and this is only my personal perspective, that, you know, if we're going to limit travel pay and mileage reimbursement and seminar attendance by members of the elected body, which includes the mayor, that we take a look at, you know, say if it's the Coalition of Greater Minnesota, so maybe we send one representative instead of everybody have the opportunity to go. That saves some money as well. How much that is depends upon how many seminars that are available and how many legislative sessions there are. And I'm going to give you an example. So say the mayor or even the city council, and I'll give you my example. Last year at the legislative session, I was down at the legislature 15 times. And each one of those times was a couple of times it was hotel reservations that the city paid for. The majority of the time, I stayed with relatives or I stayed someplace else, so it didn't cost the city any money. Never got reimbursed for meals. Never put in. Very rarely ever put in for reimbursement for mileage. So those kind of things happen on a regular basis. So for those of you who are looking at the city council paying their travel expenses and they think it's a waste of money on the budget, as I've heard, that's not really the case, because if you're going to go down and lobby for the city and you're going down to testify at a committee, you're not, we're not allowed to go down there. We have to spend our own money, our own time, our own efforts to go down there. I think that's unreasonable. But we can shrink the costs associated with those travels, you know, by limiting how many people go and what seminars or conferences that are beneficial to the city and how the city operates. The example is the League of Minnesota Cities and the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. And so they have those meetings down in the cities. And then whenever there's a bonding cycle with the legislature, you're down there lobbying for your bonding requests, or lobbying for everything that we were asking for the city. This year, we're going to be going down to ask for some city hall upgrades, $1.7 million. That's just out of bonding. EMS opportunities, additional funding for ambulance service. All that comes from going down and talking to the legislatures, meeting each and every one of them, using our lobbyists to introduce who knows all these legislators. You go down there, meet with each one of them, you lay out, you present, you testify. If we were not able to do that, we're not doing it. We're doing a disservice to the community. So keeping that in perspective, let's take a look at the compensation. Let's continue the discussion about the compensation for the city council and the mayor. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we move on, I don't know if anyone wants to talk about that specific item, but if I could just ask a question before we move forward.
Yeah, please do.
We're looking at, so Britt, these two sheets here, okay, and on the bottom right-hand column, it's got total expenditures of $20,453,847 at the 21%. But on this sheet right here, we've got, so it's this one, City of Virginia General Fund, you've got all the revenues in there, then you've got the 21, 15, 12, and 10%. You've got a total of $20,650,111. And I just want to know which one of those is correct, because if we're aiming to go down to the next percentage rung, the difference from 21% to 15% is $317,810. But if the correct number should be $20,453,000, we only need, it would only be a difference of $121,546.
The expenditures that we were proposing were $20,453,000. At the 21% general fund levy, we will have $20,650,000. So we'll have an increase or extra funds at 21%.
Okay, so you're saying but this one is also listed at 21% at the top right corner.
Correct.
So but these are both proposed.
One is revenue and one is expenditure. So we will end up with revenue over expenditure right now.
Okay,
What we're
okay,
proposing.
got it.
Make sense?
The
'Cause I don't, we didn't,
revenue,
we,
expenditure.
none of us expects to stay at the 21%. We all know this is going to go down.
Yep,
First blush, we have the proposed expenditures are a decrease, are under the revenue, so we would have an extra 196, 264.
okay, that's what I was wanting to know. Okay.
Yep.
So then we could already do that.
We can already cut off that much to
already
get
cut
down
off
to
that much off.
196.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's what I'm looking for in terms of the numbers and cutting off.
And I think that's why you asked me for those 4 columns
And I
to figure
appreciate
out-
that, that
Yeah.
helps me tremendously.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah, so
thank
we
you, Mayor.
definitely already can get to the 196 off right
Okay.
away, right off the top.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. So staff put together the 10, 12, 15, and 20% proposal. We set the preliminary levy at 21%, and we're working on bringing it down. And so this proposed city budget cuts, revenue increases are a list of everything that the council has wanted to take a look at, the citizens that send us emails and lists, all that's including in here, and the staff recommendations as well. So, I mean, to make it easier, I mean, for me, and maybe it's not as easier for everybody in the audience or you, but take a look at these things, go through column by column, and find out what are things that we should be doing and should be doing. And then once we come to an agreement on many of these things, I'll figure it out and then see where the levy percentage is then. Maybe it's 15%, maybe it's 18%, maybe it's 11%. So the proposals that were made at the 21% level are just proposals. And these are some of the information that we have, but this list is a list of everything that people have asked us to take a look at. And some of these things I think are without due respect, not really in the realm of being able to do it immediately. So we have immediate decisions that we can make, intermediate decisions that we can make, and long-term meeting we can make, because sometimes it takes negotiations, sometimes there's contracts that expire, like administrative contracts that we have with private entities in order to get that accomplished. So a lot of times those things are still in the mix for 24 or 25. So, but some of these things are things that we can take a look at cutting. And so looking at some of it to lean the budget out, these is where we're going from. That's why we're starting with this general budget. We're starting with administrative expenses with respect to the council and the mayor. So one of the ideas here so far was to reduce the special meeting pay or eliminate the special meeting pay, travel and mileage reimbursements, cut back on those, and school seminars and conferences, cut back on those. And then, and then, okay, and then take a look at the compensation levels that we have. So the correction was that the city council gets $500 a month, which is $300 for their stipend, and then $100 for each council meeting, is it committee home meeting? Each committee home meeting, and so that's $200, so $700 for the mayor, and $500 for the council. So, anybody? Councilor Paulson?
One more quick question.
Yes, please.
Sherry or Britt, where could we find where would the recycling be underneath?
Solid waste.
What is it?
Solid waste fund,
Enterprise.
and under an enterprise
For
fund.
the enterprise.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
not a general
so
fund.
I'll wait. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll get there on the agenda, so. Okay. Okay, we're still under general government, correct?
Correct. If there's no further items under city council, we can move to publications and ordinances.
Okay. So my question would be, and I know we're trying to take this in the totality of the circumstances, look at everything and then make a decision in each one. So, but for me, it's easier to go, if we get a consensus on item by item, or do we have a consensus on eliminating the pay for special meetings, or a consensus on that, so we can check that box, yes or no. So maybe I'd like to see that happen, so then we know where we're at. Huh?
You want to go back to council, or you want?
I think I do. I think I would. And so, there we go. So this is a committee of the whole meeting. We make decisions for the final that, this will be something we want to eliminate or not eliminate. We make a decision, and then once we make decisions on all these things, as we go down, we may not get through the whole thing, but when we make a decision, once we get there, once we come to a consensus and everything, then we add all those things up and say, where are we at now with the levy? What percentage are we at now? Do we need to do more? Or have we reduced it to a palatable level? Does that make sense to everybody or not? Councilor Paulson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So are we looking to make motions going along as, because if we're going from a committee of the whole meeting, but it would be a continuing budget meeting, so where would that end up if we do make?
I guess what I'm like to just come to a
Motions.
consensus to put on the side note that, yeah, we're agreeable to this and agreeable to that. We're not making a motion to approve because we haven't gone through everything.
Correct.
But these are something we have a consensus to agree upon to make an adjustment.
And I'm amenable to that, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Councilor Beyondich.
In the list is miscellaneous supplies. Could you tell me what miscellaneous supplies would be for the council for 500? Minor equipment, tools, other professional services, dues and subscriptions, and miscellaneous. And these are just some of the small things that we can, I'm not sure what they are.
To be exact, I do not know without looking into the detailed ledger. But I can get you that, but if you feel you do not want that, then make a consensus to have a zero in there.
And what is it budgeted for miscellaneous, for the general public's knowledge? $500 is budget for miscellaneous for the council. Okay, thank you. Pardon? $200. Okay. And mayor is 1,600? 1,500? How much has the mayor spent, do we know? I don't think I spent any. I don't really need that in my budget. Huh?
We don't have that information with us right now.
Yeah, but
We'll get that for you.
I'm just,
There are certain things that don't fall into categories. I mean, there's a government accounting standards that we have to follow, and some things just don't have a category, so they have to go into miscellaneous, and I know nobody likes that term, but there really are just those random things that just only happen once in a career, and you gotta put them somewhere.
sure. What's that? Pam?
Thank you, Mayor. There are two miscellaneous line items. One is miscellaneous supplies, which is 500, and the other is miscellaneous, which is 200.
Okay, so
And that's both on mayor and council.
mayor and council, $700 total for miscellaneous general accounting, okay? And then the mayor's budget is $1,500 in addition
Plus
to that?
500, so 2,000.
2,000. So every quarter, the mayor gets $500 extra stipend for expenses that those were incurred over the course of the time. So for the purpose of this budget meeting, and as the mayor, elected mayor at this time, for at least for this year and next year, I would propose that that $500 stipend be eliminated every month. So I wouldn't have that stipend.
You would have to give that back. We'd have to pay you, and you'd have to give it back because it's part of your pay,
Well, add that to the list that will be done.
because it has to be a motion before the next general election, and then the next person elected into the mayor's position would have to go in knowing that that's there.
Right, but I would just do it for the remainder of the
Want to do it, you would
of the
have to
term.
get paid and then pay us back.
Okay, and that would be something to put down there, not to be a permanent thing, but just because this is 2024. And if we have to make cuts, then, we'll make cuts based upon that. And I know this is not a lot of money, but at $500 a month, every quarter, $500 every quarter, so that's what, $2,000? So we could save $2,000 in 2024, so add that to the savings of another $2,000 for that. Okay? Anything else under Council Mayor, Councilor Freely?
I agree with everything we've talked about so far, but like miscellaneous items, if I recall, we were talking about one that was a $1,500 line item budgeted. I can't remember which category it was in. And I believe we were 60 to 70% through the fiscal year. And of that $1,500, we'd only spent $197. So I guess, even though we had that budgeted, it's not being frivolously used or abused. It's there for a purpose for miscellaneous items, but it's not very regularly used, from what I gather.
Yeah, I don't use it, so, yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to ask, in terms of like the monthly compensation that we get for a monthly stipend plus the $200 for the committee of the whole meetings, isn't that the money then that is reinvested in to pay for our health insurance? So like, I don't get that into my bank account, that goes into my health insurance. That's covering the cost of my health insurance. I'm personally benefiting from having health insurance without question, but the money that the city appropriates for that, for me as a counselor, for the work I'm doing as a counselor, is actually then put into my health insurance account.
Yes, sir. Yes, correct, yes. Mhm.
And then I asked Sherry today, and like being a retired person at 66 years of age, qualified for Medicare, should the city be paying a full coverage policy for me as opposed to just covering my supplemental costs that normally at my age would be costs? And Sherry, I think, told me that when I'm an active member of the city, by law, I'm not allowed to do that, or you're not allowed to do that.
That's correct.
I consider that to be a potential cut for people of my age, your age, Carl's age, but for whatever reason, that can't be done, which is odd to me, but it would have been a savings that we could have proposed.
Yeah, we checked into that a few years back before we changed to VIBA, if we could do that, and we were told no.
So,
And I'm not opposed at all to the reduction of the special meetings costs and/or elimination of the special meetings costs. I think professional development is very important, to be honest with you, and I agree with Mr. Counselor Johnson with regard to that. Certainly limiting it to like a representative to go down and bring back the information to the rest of us, or limiting it to one per person on the council, something like that, rather than all of us having to go. But all of these things we've talked about from the city council perspective are all viable reductions that we certainly should consider.
thank you, Councilor Freely. Councilor Motley?
Yeah, when looking at the percentages of 21, 15, 12, and 10, I actually just subtracted the difference between the percents, which if you go to the 10% is $582,652.70. And seeing how big the City of Virginia budget is, $582,000 and $582,000 roughly, I think we could get to that. I really do. So like in my head, I'm thinking 10%, but I think after seeing so many things here, like to get to 10% from 21%, it's $582,000 out of a $20+ million budget. And then I was just looking at something else, numbers provided about VIBA. It looks like the taxpayers of Virginia pay, if I did the math right, it's $326,000 a year on VIBA at either $2,000 or $4,000, depending on whatever employees in council are signed up for. So, I mean, that's a big expenditure too. I mean, and this is long before my time, but can that ever be looked at ever in the future? Or is that like a no-go, or that would be an instant savings every year for the taxpayers of Virginia?
Sherry?
What's your question? I'm sorry.
Pardon?
What's your question, Counselor Motley?
That's a big chunk of change that could be,
So you're saying no insurance for employees?
no, BIBA, or excuse me, the 2,000 and an extra, I'm not saying that.
The deductible. The
Well,
VIBO?
each person gets, either $2,000 in a,
Viva, okay.
Yes.
and it looks like each year we're budgeting, or as of 2024, $326,000. That's just BIBA. That doesn't include the medical insurance, which is in a whole different realm, but,
That would be a negotiated item as it's in all 4 contracts?
okay. Does it ever get negotiated, or,
Oh, yes, that's where we got where we are with going into PEEP.
okay,
And then we have a hardship clause in there. We also, but
okay,
yeah, that is an item that can be negotiated.
okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Chair.
And thank you for that. So if that's going to be something moving forward, I think the council has to lay the groundwork for that with their own compensation about the VIBA thing. So that's something we have to talk about as well. If that's going to be the case, and by God, we should do something about it as well for ourselves. So, okay. All right, so put that down, VIBA. Contribution by city council and mayor. Thank you. Okay, anything else under the general government?
Still just on council.
Pardon?
We're still just on council under general
Yeah,
government.
okay, thank you. What's next?
The next one was publications and ordinances. That one really doesn't change a whole lot every single year.
Mayor?
Sherry?
You'll see an increase of 13,000 for next year. We have elections coming up. And then Pam, you said there's some special primary elections that were going to cost us a little extra.
We certainly can't make any adjustments to the costs associated with providing an election. This is required by law to do so, so. Okay, what's the next one?
You have a separate budget, the mayor has a separate budget from the city council?
I'm
You have a
sorry.
separate budget from the city council?
Yeah,
So we're on your page 6, or page 8, I'm sorry.
okay.
I'm assuming the same recommendations from the council discussion?
You're looking for recommendations from the council?
The council page, the same cuts to mayor?
Yes,
They're 2 separate line items, so I want to make sure that that's clear.
yes,
Yep,
yes. From my perspective, yes.
perfect. The next one's administration.
What is it?
Administration.
Administration, okay, very good. Thank you. So Sherry, run down the administration for the audience and those who are listening at home.
Excuse me, are you addressing me, Mayor?
Yeah, page
Okay,
9.
sorry. In this administration, there is full-time city administrator and 2 finance personnel, myself, and 1 payroll. That's 50/50. So half of mine and the payroll clerk's positions are coded 50% into city admin and the rest into, other 50 into the finance. And then you can see the medical increase, the VIBA.
There's also administrative assistant, half of administrative
Oh,
assistant.
forgot about her, sorry.
Yep.
Yep. So I don't know, Britt, this is basically your budget here. Is there any place that you can cut?
You have the administrative costs, just to point out the fact that we have a dual role in which Sherry Erickson, our finance director, she's also serves as the HR director as well. So she serves a dual role based upon that general administration. Is that correct? Right, thank you. So any proposals there? Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm under other professional services, so it's account ending in 319. Is that our audit
You'll see that in the finance. That is
What is that expenditure for?
actuarial studies. Some of it is, could be legal counsel during to do with personnel issue, labor issues.
Okay, so then if you go and look at the 23 current and then 24 future, then look at the difference. That difference is not correct. So is this from Cassell?
Yes and no.
But does it do its own math? Like, does it do its, oh, so you actually have to manually
I
go
have
in
to
and put
manually
in those
add all
numbers?
these in there.
Okay,
And we were panicking last week trying to get it done.
okay, so then I guess that number would just need
Yeah,
to
so
be.
the difference column, I do have to beg
Okay.
forgiveness on those ones. I don't know that they're all correct because I was doing.
I guess when I look at things, I start at the difference column to
Yeah.
see what can be cut.
Be cut. And we certainly can cut down the professional services. If you'd like, that would be, we had proposed originally when we were looking at the 31% levy, we were looking at a $25,000 increase, and I told her, back that down.
Okay.
We don't want to have that much.
So then that would just kind of increase just by a very small.
Small amount, yeah.
And then, what was my other question on, I was seeing two miscellaneous, one was 0 and then miscellaneous supplies. So we went, are we just gonna eliminate that item or the line 439 is a different miscellaneous supplies, the line 209?
Correct. Anything that I would buy miscellaneous would be a supply. It would be something random that I would
Okay.
get, wouldn't be a normal miscellaneous.
So we're just zeroing out the 439 account and then that's
we'll
the
use
difference
the-
in there. Okay,
I
okay.
don't often use that line item for anything. Like Gary said, if we don't use it, we just leave it in there. It just doesn't.
Okay, then the last question I just had, Britt, is the, that $9,000 capital outlay, is that under the, any of the bond issuance, the equipment bonds that we've done?
Not for 24, no. And that's another one that if we don't use it, we don't use it. It doesn't go into that account. It doesn't get allocated there. That's usually computers. We put a couple of, if Ashley, and I just want to, my administrative
somebody
assistant needs a
needs a
computer,
computer.
or if the payroll needs a computer, or, that would be
So
almost,
that's considered the, like, type of office equipment that,
that I would, be printers.
budgeted amount would be used
Yeah,
for.
yeah, label makers, things like that.
okay, thank you.
And again, only if we need them, do we do that.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So the admin for third account, how much was allocated for that?
621,337.
How much?
$621,337.
You're going to limit zero that out,
That's the total cost of the budget.
right?
The professional supplies, the
Yes.
professional services was 68,000, I believe.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We're not zeroing, 67,800. We could reduce that back down to 62. Doesn't take a lot off, but
Yeah, reduce that to 62? All right, very good, thank you. Okay, thank you. Another $8,000. Okay, anything else there, Council? Okay, next item.
elections, this is one Sherry was referencing. We do have a special election we have to do in March, I believe. Is it March, Pam?
And what's that for?
That's the presidential primary. And then we have the primary in August and the general election in November.
Thank you.
And with the new laws in place,
Yeah.
we'll need a lot more judges. So anybody that would like to volunteer to be, well, not volunteer, you get paid, but I'll be looking for some.
Okay, very good. So elections is a solid budgeted item. Okay. Anything else on the elections? Okay, what's next?
Clerk's office, there's one city clerk and then half the receptionist.
And that is shared by
Receptionist, please.
police, right? Okay, and that receptionist was created a while back so they'd have to put a police officer sitting at that window. They eliminated the sergeant position there, they eliminated a desk position, and they added this civilian admin position at right?
Correct. When we went to 911 dispatching rather than our own dispatching, they put a civilian there.
Right, and she's the receptionist that people come to in City Hall, and she directs and delegates to the appropriate departments within the city. and does police work as well, enters data entry and those kind of things. Okay, and that's a full-time position. Thank you. Any questions about the receptionist? Okay, next item. Please.
Page 12 is finance. In the finance department, there's half of the finance HR safety director. Accounting with payroll is 1/2, and then 2 accountant 3s.
And we added that other individual in accounting in order to accommodate the auditor's request that we have separation of duties.
Correct.
And so we added that in order to comply with the state, with the auditor's request that we still have separation of duties, although there's still some other issues that need to be resolved, some minor issues, but this hire has sufficed or has complied with the request to ensure that we have those separation of duties in according to auditing standards. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Anybody, Counselor Johnson?
Just wanted to point out that in the finance, that audit, those auditing fees are $43,000, which is the third most expensive line item. So it's kind of ironic that the person up here said we're in trouble, is $43,000 of our budget so something to keep in mind too, that I know that finding another auditor or doing an RFP, which maybe it's time we do that, but I know that the process will be much more expensive. I've done it with several nonprofits, and to change auditors, when you change auditor, having them go through for that very first time takes a lot longer, and it usually costs significantly more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't want to backtrack, but I just realized real quick too,
Yeah, go ahead.
in the, probably the one before the travel expense, so was that you? No, we're on city clerk right now. So I guess what I'm looking at is travel expense overall. Is it possible to not increase, I mean, not to nix travel, but just to not increase that throughout all departments? And just keep it status quo and hopefully try to work within the means of that status quo for all departments? Because the last, I guess, sorry, I'm putting pages as we go and I just didn't look at that one carefully. Yeah, so travel expense for city admin went up $500. Travel expense for city clerk is going up $700. So maybe if that's amenable to everybody, that would be something we could keep the same from last year or from this year going into next year. That would be a recommendation that I would put forth. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And one of the items that were on the list for on this list is travel. There's one of the questions that no approved travel unless it's required for your license or training that's required by law, or in order to ensure your licensure, whether no matter where you're at, whether you're in public works, police, fire, admin, clerk, or whatever we need to do. It'd be just for the required training in order to maintain a current licensure, regardless of what that is. So thank you for that, Councilor Paulson. Okay, what's next?
If there's nothing else in finance, we go to assessor. And assessor, this is the fee that the county charges us to do our county assessing.
The assessor? And what do we have budgeted for the assessor?
$25,440. $25,440.
Okay, $25,440 for the assessor. And why are we budgeting that?
Correction, this is the retirees' insurance premiums. That's okay.
I'm sorry?
Retirees insurance premiums for the assessor.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Okay.
May I ask,
Oh,
Mayor,
yes, Councilor Freely.
for those retirees that we are obligated to pay that, it's been sunset now, with my understanding,
It has been
as of
sunset.
whatever. But, so like if they've reached 65 years old and qualify for Medicaid, Are we just paying their supplemental costs, or are we required to pay a full coverage?
You know, that's a good question, Counselor Freeland. When they turn 65 or are Medicare eligible, they have to go on the Platinum Blue supplemental. Medicare becomes their main or their primary insurance, and the city supplemental becomes their secondary or their supplement. So they have to, per their contract. Now there are, the percentage that they pay for the copay on their premiums is based on the time they retired, what type of contract they were under.
So just the supplemental costs are $25,000?
Yeah,
Person isn't 65 yet?
Correct.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Anything else on the assessor? And that's a legacy cost that's been sunsetted, so no future retirees will have that benefit. Okay, next item,
And the next one is page 14, attorney.
attorney, okay. We had a city attorney with a salary of, what was it, 90,000 some dollars plus benefits. Now, once our city attorney retired, we now contract out our attorney services. Right now, our attorney services is the Trenti Law Firm for civil and the Colosimo Law Firm for misdemeanor criminal. And then, of course, felonies and gross misdemeanors are automatically prosecuted by the county attorney's office. But we pay for the misdemeanor prosecution for the city and for the civil city attorney that attends our council meetings. So that's what this is about, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Any questions about that? I know we periodically review the quotes for our city representatives. And so the contract is on was it a 3-year contract? Or if I remember correctly, I don't remember what year we're on right now. Do we know? For the city attorney? Anyway, we're on a contract fee for basis with our city attorney to provide basic city services, and then anything above and beyond that for litigation or anything, if we don't use the League of Minnesota Cities and other, we still have to pay our city attorney for any additional costs, correct? Thank you. Councilor Motley?
Do we ever, as I'm thinking in my head, attorney shop where we're looking for a cheaper attorney, or is it just we're set with Trenti, or?
Well, we have, and we can. I know that historically, I'll talk about the criminal one first. Mr. Carney from the Colosimo Law Firm represents us for misdemeanor matters, and I don't believe he's raised his rates for a number of years, and he's been the lowest in town and provides very good professional services. So we've kept that along as we move forward. We can look at and look at other attorneys to see if we can get a better bang for our buck, or representatives, or wherever the council desires. But yes, we can do that.
I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, Pam?
Thank you. So as far as the civil, that has no ending date, so it's just an open-ended contract.
Open-ended contract? Okay,
There's
thank you.
probably a 30-day clause. And the criminal was just approved and expires in 2025, December 31st.
Okay, we did so the misdemeanor criminal prosecution through the Colosimo Law Firm with Mr. Mike Carney. We signed an agreement, and that expires in 2025. And the agreement they have through the Trenti Law Firm with Brian Lindsay as our designated representative, that's on a month-to-month, on an ongoing basis.
Month to month and not just for a flat year.
So
Is that how I'm understanding that?
It's just an ongoing contract, so it's open-ended.
I'd be willing to look at seeing if they'd be willing to, well, I'd be curious to see if we can find somebody that might be cheaper than Trenti, unless they'd be willing to negotiate something else if it's month to month.
Yeah, it's an open-ended contract, so at any time you could seek other quotes, potentially.
Could we do that if the council, I guess, was
We could.
open to it? I guess it's just me, my opinion, but thanks.
Okay, we'll write that down as an option for the moving forward for 2024. Counselor Paulson?
Mayor, just to confirm on account ending 318, contract services, that 30,000 that's budgeted, so that's mainly for additional, that would be our criminal expenditure for attorney fees in that contract services line item? Is that where like Colosimo would fall under? Because I think like the HR and the Pemberton law, they fall more under administration, and then so does Colosimo, which is our criminal. Would that be the contract services on that account number 318? I guess I'm just trying to, how do we budget for how many criminal cases we have coming up? I don't know, but
We pay him a monthly stipend whether he prosecutes 50 of misdemeanor
Got it.
cases or 5.
okay. Okay, so I guess what makes up that line item? What services that we're paying out? To whom?
Turn on your light for, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I would have to get a detailed ledger, which I can ask Lori to do because she's listening in. So I'll ask her to do that, and it'll list out, just like I've got a detailed ledger for the city administrator. I'll shoot to you.
That would be helpful. Thank you, Sherry.
Would
Appreciate
you,
it.
would
Thank
you share
Mayor.
that with all of us?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, anything else on the city attorney? Counselor Freely?
Just the retired insurance premiums we're paying for past attorneys, was that a negotiated item for a particular individual, or?
It was. Falls under, he was a pre-employed prior to
correct. He was
prior
an
to the
employee.
sunset. He was employed as our city attorney prior to the sunset clause, so he would then be eligible for that insurance. Sherry, is that correct?
That's correct.
Are they considered full-time employees then?
Was.
He was.
Was.
Prior,
Had benefits to get
in the
vacation.
last 6 years of his being here, he was under the phased retirement through PERA. So prior to that, he was an employee, and there was a secretary that was also with him that also retired under that clause. Ask me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Okay, we'll get that information with respect to the attorney there for all of us. Anything else on the city attorney or the attorney's services? Next item, please.
Next one is the data processing, and this is where we first come to the first employee that we've talked about not filling, is the IT systems coordinator position.
As much as I think we need an IT person, I would like to hold this position in abeyance and not hire until we figure out what our budget's going to be for 2024. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. On line 319, other professional service for 90,000, would that continue to stay there if we had the IT person?
Hard to say. I don't know what it would be. I would really need that IT person to figure out how much we actually really need to farm out versus what we could do here.
So we're theoretically, that number will go down some.
Theoretically, yes.
Okay. And the subscriptions, I'm just curious to know where that fits in this category.
Subscriptions, Microsoft has changed their model now. You don't get CDs anymore like you used to. Now you have to pay a per subscription fee for every single user. So every single email address we have, every single computer we have, all has subscriptions that we have to pay for now.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Britt. Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Any other questions? Counselor Motley, do you have a question?
I don't know, it's kind of a hypothetical maybe for Britt, but if obvious, sounds like maybe no IT person. Do you have an idea of how many thousand hypothetically we might be saving? I'm just thinking of this 10% and adding that down to my numbers here, but.
Yeah, if we didn't have a hire an IT person, it'd be roughly
With benefits?
100,000 or so.
Awesome. Okay, so that's an instant savings right there. That's huge. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Motley. Okay, any other questions here? Okay, and next item, please.
Next item is City Hall, the actual building itself. We do have one employee here at City Hall that belongs to this building. It's a maintenance person.
That's a maintenance person for City Hall. That's our
Janitor.
custodian. Okay. And that custodian takes care of the entire building. Thank you. Mows the grass. Does it? Okay. Any questions or concerns or comments about the custodian in City Hall? Counselor Paulson.
You again, account 319. And other professional services is increasing by $12,000. Could we have an explanation of what that means or what that is?
Sherry?
Yes, I'll get you a detailed, it's based on this last year and this year's usage of whatever we contracted out so far.
Like professional services for like,
Sometimes there's things that Kurt Kessanen needs assistance on with like the boiler or some mechanical, so that would fall under that.
So something that he can't fix falls back to our Public Works, correct?
wouldn't that be under like
Or, I'm sorry?
building maintenance or repair or equipment maintenance?
If we actually pay for a service, it would be under professional service.
Okay, so I'd like a little bit more detail on that if we could, so, because that's a number, that's a $12,000 difference. Thank you.
Okay. Get that, thank you, Sherry. We got that on the list. Thank you, Pam. Anybody else? Okay, next item, please.
The next one is police.
Okay, police, very good. Okay, thank you. So I know the state of Minnesota requires, and if you're working down the list here, maybe go all the way down, but the state of Minnesota has what they call a POST board, the Police Officer Standards and Training Board, which they're required to maintain a license to practice law enforcement in the state of Minnesota. And they're required to attend certain types of training every year as mandatory training. In addition to that, they have to pay a license fee to maintain their license every 3 years. We do send our police officers to other schools throughout the state of Minnesota. And primarily, these try to send them, as the chief had indicated, to what they call train the trainer programs. So if a police officer goes down to Minneapolis or Rochester or somewhere and takes what they call a taser training, that individual will be able to take that training and come back and train all the other police officers, so there's only one expenditure for a train the trainer as opposed to sending every officer down to another trainer. So it's a little bit more money for the trainer, but yet in the long run, you save a lot of money, particularly when it's required by your lessons under the post-board standards. And there is a slight reimbursement sometimes for training every year from the state of Minnesota for post-training for every department in the state of Minnesota. It's just based upon how many officers you have and what kind of training they're required to go to. So that particular part of it. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 4 items on this particular worksheet. The first item is the top column, the school resource officer. In light of what is happening, what is the city and the school doing currently? And if the school is not going to be using the SRO, I know they're currently, I think, exterior patrolling, but not doing anything interior. So what does that look like for reimbursement from ISD 2909, and what is the intention going forward for the school year 2023-2024?
They are, what?
All right, so doing some research with respect to this, Councilor Paulson. The state of Minnesota passed a law regarding how a school resource officer can use the officer's authority, even at the request of the school, and how they handle students who are unruly or are creating a major disturbance. And there's certain guidelines that are set by this state law that really constrict what the school resource officer can do. And part of this law says that if the school resource officer has to confront, they can't, really can't take any action. They can call another police officer off the street to come in and take that action, because the impetus of the law is that the school resource officer then would lose the trust of the students that are there. So because it's become a liability, police departments across the state of Minnesota have not filled their school resource officer position. The chief has indicated that that individual goes back on the regular patrol rotation to fill an empty slot that would be normally formed by a patrol officer. And in the course of having to respond to the school, if that officer is on duty, who is the SRO, even though they're not assigned to the school, not paid by Independent School 2909 because we don't have a contract with them, since that officer has already established previously a relationship with students in the school, if that person is on duty, that person would be assigned to respond to the school. If not, another police officer does that. And so,
I guess I'm just wondering, do we have a contract with ISD 2909 for an SRO, because we are budgeting 75,000, which is it's one FTE for 24. For 23, it was only a half-time position, so it's an increase of $42,219. So what is the status of the contract between Rockridge and the City of Virginia?
They have not signed the contract because we have not given them an officer. And this is 24 budget. We have every indication that they're going into special session, either late January or very beginning in February, to make the law correct, that we can put a school resource officer in there. And the school has said that they would then support
fee.
that.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, thank you for that.
And so remember, their school year, their fiscal year is a little different than ours. So it'll end up being the 75,000 in the end
May
for us
just-
for 24,
Because it'll cover the
both
part
their
into
school
the
years.
next
Yeah,
school year.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay, so leave that in there.
Yep, but he's not been reassigned. Like you said, he's just
Right.
patrolling like they did patrol Midway anyway. It's not.
Okay, then on the overtime pay, I am super concerned, item, I guess the account is 104, ending in 104. If we're fully staffed in our police department, why is the budget overtime pay increasing by $140,000 from $60,000 in budget year 2023, going up to $200,000 in 2024?
Sherry, when you had your discussion, and when you had discussion with the department head, what was the reason for this requested increase in overtime? Is it based upon the last couple of years?
Yes, thank you. Last contract, where we are going to be, it has to do with the float day, paying them.
Run that by me again, please.
With the last contract, LEL last contract. Britt, can you help me out on that one?
They have the government day, the float day they have to take because of the way the federal labor standards work, and they don't work a 40-hour work week. They work a 48-hour work week, and when you get to a certain number of hours, you either have to give them a day off or you have to pay them overtime for that shift that goes over the certain amount of hours in a period. Their contract was changed so that they don't have to take the day off anymore. They can choose overtime. So the chief is planning worst-case scenario. If everybody took all their float days as overtime, this is what it would look like. I don't think that's going to happen. Most people want their day off. They don't want to work that many days. That gets to be very long, as you know, when you're working these really unregular shifts of 4 on, 4 off.
So in answer to Councilor Paulson's question, so we're budgeting for that.
We did budget for it. We could reduce it.
We did, and I think maybe it's probably wise to do that. And then I think I would like to see, and maybe we would all like to see, what was the actual overtime that was taken for government days in 2022, 2023, and how many took the overtime pay and how many took the time off. And I think we encouraged them to take the day off, obviously, and I know, so I'd be curious to know what that was, so that we can make a better judgment on how we reduce it. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Councilor Paulson.
No, I appreciate some of that explanation. That's actually going down to, just eliminating that one item right there, that difference, and keeping it the status as last year, that already brings our levy down to 15%.
Right.
So, this is a big number, and I'm still not understanding when did the LELS contract,
Last year.
or was last year, and that's what changed. So then in this year, was it in place for '23? So then did we way go over the budget of $60,000 for overtime?
Sherry?
I just sent out the financials. Did you have a chance to look at them?
No, Sherry, my desk is covered, so.
It's on your computer.
Well, could you?
I have it.
Could you run it?
Have it up? Thank you.
Counselor Johnson?
Thank you.
run it
From
down
the
for us,
email.
Counselor Paulson.
That was sent out. I have it pulled up here. The overtime last year actual was 122,174. Current year actual is 75,464. So we're at it's a difference of 15,464. So we're 25% over what our budget was, but we're still way under what last year was and way under the 200,000.
And budgeting for the worst-case scenario, the majority of these people, based on 23, maybe back in 22, are taking time off as opposed to taking the overtime pay. But this chief is budgeting for the worst-case scenario here, so we can make an adjustment to that, correct?
Right, and I get that. I appreciate the explanation, and thank you, Counselor Johnson, for looking that up. But we're already over, and those were as of September financials, Counselor Johnson? Or those August or, so
September,
Sherry?
be September.
technically, we have 3 more months, and we're still going to go deeper in down.
I would suggest we cut it to 100,000 from 200,000,
So then we're increasing
slightly.
40
not-
grand. Okay, so I would like to take a hard look at that and maybe get some information on what the mayor had asked to supply. Then,
Could I make a comment just on that one piece that, so in addition to that, is this overtime only for the government day stuff, or is this overtime that's being incurred by investigators who are investigating a case, and they're out for, if there's a big bad case where they're out for 2, 3, or 4, or 5, or 6 hours over, the investigators, the officers, they're at a crime scene, that's all overtime too. That's all included in this as well, is it
Correct,
not?
it's all the same. Yep.
Okay, so it's not just government days. There's overtime for legitimate police work.
thank you, Mayor. Then under other professional services, again, that account 319, ending in 319, there is an increase from $80,000 in '23 budget year to an additional $55,000 for a total of $135,000. I'm wondering what that expenditure increase is.
Sherry?
I can get that for you in a detail.
Okay, I think until that's provided, I would take that back down to $80,000 to match '23 budget.
Okay, I got that, Pam? Thank you.
And then the travel expense, again, is increasing to 2,000. I would like to look into that. I understand police and fire probably are different, a little different in travel with requirements and train the trainer. But again, if we could look at reduction of that difference and keep it status quo from 2023. Thank you, Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Okay, any other questions, comments with respect to police and their budget? Counselor Freely?
This is out on a limb, but are canines still required as viable, necessary, now that weed's been legalized? I mean, I don't know what else they do. And I'm just going on,
That's not the only drug.
okay, that's what I'm saying. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I had them sniff around schools for 16 years, and the truth was, never, ever uncovered anything in any school, which was a good thing,
It's a good thing.
obviously. But I just had to ask, because it's a significant expense, but if it's still a viable employee, so to speak, then so be it.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else with respect to police? Okay, next item, please.
The next one's fire.
Okay?
And to correct last time, thank you, Councilor Paulson, you're absolutely correct. We actually had the ambulance, medical in the fire column. So we apologize, I got it fixed. So that's where that correction was from last time. So you'll see it's a little more manageable number now.
Okay, so the question I have is, how many employees do we have in the fire department, which includes firefighters, firefighter paramedics, single role paramedics, EMTs? We have a total of how many? 38? 40?
40.
40? And if you, and I know we're talking about, so you might not have this breakdown in front of you, Sherry, but so we have, how many of those are EMTs and part-timers?
There's no part-timers.
Pardon?
There's no part-time.
So they're all full-time EMTs?
They're all full-time.
So, okay, so there's a salary breakdown as to firefighter, paramedics, and see, we have our department heads here, so maybe you give us a little clarity here. Chief Frederickson with the fire department, and Assistant Chief Jonason, welcome.
Afternoon, oh, sorry, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, we have currently 38 members and 11 of them are EMS only.
Okay, the EMS are EMTs or paramedics?
Paramedics, yep,
They're single role paramedics, 11.
11.
Again, how many EMTs do you have?
Ooh. Five, I believe, six.
Okay, we'll say 6. So are those, out of the 38 employees, 11 are single role paramedics, 6 are EMTs, and the rest are dual role firefighter paramedics, is that correct?
Or firefighter EMTs.
And firefighter EMTs, so. Okay. Okay. How many ambulances do you run currently? You have available?
5 main ambulances, 1 in reserve.
Okay, so 5 and 1 in reserve, so 6 ambulances potentially. Okay, so this is a time as we, I'll hold my rest comments in advance for Councilor Paulson. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So because the 40% of the salary allocation is allocated under the general fund fire department, but then the other 60% is under the ambulance fund, revenue fund. So if we go to that, you add the two together, is that correct? I'm looking to see, do we have that total number?
The ambulance number is 3,851,000.
And then could you guys explain like how that is expensed or who arrived at that way to expense it? In terms of, because it's, when you're getting the dollars in from transfers or, you know, all the payments that you guys are getting in, that goes to the ambulance side. And then how is it allocated, like at 40, 60, 40 split? Is there a reason for that? Or is that just how it's always been done, or is there
No, Counselor?
No, go
Mayor?
ahead.
No, Counsel, that, we actually revisited that about 5 years ago when Chief Lewis was on board. And it's based on the, only firefighters who are certified in firefighter 1 and 2 are in the fire department. Not any ambulance, no EMTs, that's all falls under the ambulance.
He did it on the base of the number of calls they do per year. And this 40% of the calls they do per year are fire, 60% of them are ambulance.
Okay, so but that kind of contradicts if that's the case, because you all listed on this sheet on the right-hand column on page 20, it states everybody is under that 40% salary allocation to the
Except
fire
for
department.
single roles are not on this page. Single roles come under ambulance only.
Okay, that's why it's really hard to follow.
It is,
And how
it is.
you know, how we try to manage this portion of it. Not that that's what we're trying to do, we're trying to. Here he is, right? So then out of that, what my understanding though is all of the money that's collected, does that go into a special ambulance, just for my own, putting it in a perspective, in a bank account?
Our ambulance revenue goes into that special revenue fund.
Goes into that special revenue fund, then do you take part of that, then, if you're paying 60% of your salaries, do you have to take 60% of that and transfer that into, to pay for the 40, like, how does that work?
Levy pays the 40%. The city pays for fire coverage.
Okay,
Taxpayers pay for the fire coverage. People that use the ambulance service pay for the ambulance service.
okay, so that's how it's allocated differently.
And there, I do want to point out, fire does have some revenue occasionally. We have special revenue fees that we charge to, we have contracts with the mines, we have a couple other rescue billing that we do that goes to fire. So the fire does have some revenue. It's not shown on here, it'll be shown on the general fund revenue, but they do have that, and that goes to them.
Okay, and then just, I'm so sorry, Mayor, but just one thing.
Yep, please
Is
do.
there a breakdown like this sheet for ambulance?
I didn't get it in there for some reason. I will get that to you, yes.
That's what I was trying to find.
I do have
Okay,
that.
so if we could have that for next time.
Yes,
Thank
definitely.
you, Mayor, and thank you very much.
Apologize that I didn't get that in
Okay,
there.
thank you. And we have that, make sure we have that?
Yes,
I do that, I actually have
I
that.
do have it.
when
I
do
just
the
forgot.
budget.
I just didn't get it in there, and I apologize for that.
Okay, that's fine, we'll get it for the next meeting, so that's good. Okay. I don't have any more questions for fire ambulance. Counselor Johnson?
Thank you. Are those fees that we're charging under fire, are they adequate at this time? Have we increased them recently, or this would be a revenue opportunity? Do we have a retainer fee for all those specialty things as we're moving forward?
I believe the last time we addressed the rescue billing was the start of last year, I think January 22, and that got us caught up to the times at that time. That's the hard part when we attach revenue to public safety, is now we got to look at lift assist, fire alarms, and we want to start charging for those types of things, So that's that hard line, but we can certainly look into those and discuss, for sure.
I do remember us having that conversation. I just want to make sure costs have increased over the years. There need to be an escalator in our contracts as we move forward that automatically, every year it goes up a little bit, so that we don't get behind on those again. So that would be my comment for that, is looking at what the annuals look like and if there's a need to have escalator clauses in those contracts. Thank you.
And thank you. And while we're on the ambulance, you're looking at the revenue stream that's established. So you have the fire is in the, and then you got the ambulance. So let's look at the ambulance real quickly. The ambulance is paid for by the users of the ambulance. We reimburse, we pay for the costs associated with the employees that provide that ambulance service, and we hope to generate enough revenue to ensure that we can break even or even come in the black. But we don't do that all the time because of the reimbursement limitations that we have for ambulance service. And we have the ambulance service, we have the 640 square mile, we have the ambulance license, we have 5 ambulances plus 1 in Bain, so we could have 6 ambulances out, you respond to a call. If it's private pay and they pay the full amount, which, we're lucky to get that, right? And then if it's a Medicare run, if your ambulance costs are $1,500, what's your Medicare reimbursement, $450 a month, or $450 a run?
Maximum.
Maximum $450 a run, so you're not covering your costs associated with that. And then you have the insurance pay as well. So when you're not recovering those costs, the rest of the costs associated with that in the ambulance fund, the special revenue fund, is borne by us. That's where the deficit comes in. And so as we move forward, as we look at those things, and we talked about the immediate for 2024, the intermediate, and the long term. We have our work cut out for us. Everybody's talking about a special, an ambulance revenue, a special taxing district, which under the Minnesota statute 477, I can't remember what it is, I don't have it with me, it's in my office. We have the authority to levy a tax for ambulance service within the city of Virginia. So theoretically, we could add whatever it is, if we do the financial pro forma, $10 a year, $15 a year for every business and residents in the city of Virginia. We could do that to supplement the costs associated with the ambulance service. We can also do it in other communities that we serve, Evelyn, Gilbert, Biwabic, wherever it is, as long as we go out there and provide advanced life support, ALS, paramedic service, as opposed to the EMT, airway breathing circulation. So you can put the drugs in, call the doctor, you can save somebody's life. So the issue there is that The problem that we have, and we've done a lot of research, staff has done that, and we're working through our lobbyists to make that, get that little change down at the legislature for next legislative session. I think you'll be here tonight to give us a little rundown. But we have the authority to go to all these other agencies. Say for example, we go to the city of Aurora, and we go to the city fathers of Aurora, it's taxes without representation, so those communities are represented by an elected body. So we have to go to that elected body and ask, if you want ALS service, we want to provide it, but we can't cover our costs coming over here all the time. So we would ask you to pass a resolution authorizing us to levy whatever amount of money per household in that particular community. And if that community agrees, we can do that. But historically, communities have not done so. So we have our work cut off for us to put that together to try to help, boost the revenue stream with respect to the ambulance service. And that's the intermediate and long-term impact. We probably aren't going to do this for the 2024 budget, but it's on the radar to move forward in that direction to try and bolster and solidify a very strong revenue stream so we can continue to provide ALS service and meet the needs and not have to cover the costs associated with that through our general levy budget or through our reserves or through our investments, which we are not going to do. So this is the other part of that. Does that make sense? Councillor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Without having that ambulance sheet, but just going off of the revenues and expenditures in the special revenue funds. So what we're saying, proposed in 2024, that we will not be needing any intergovernmental supplement
That's what we're hoping, yep.
for that. So congratulations, that's a big deal. That's amazing.
Trust, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But that's a big difference from where we were at with draft
And
3.
being fully staffed helps, not having to, not just turn on calls because we didn't have staff is going to be a big thing, and that's what helps with this.
So I'm glad to see that. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Councillor Paulson. Thank you, Chief, Assistant Chief, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Unless somebody else any more concerns, comments, or questions for our fire EMS staff? Seeing none, thank you
They
very
walk
much.
away. The next
Thank
one
you
is
all.
emergency operations, the EOC, which actually is our civil defense sirens. So it's a very small budget and it hasn't increased in years. 8,500. It's our contract to have maintain them once a year.
And you're, as a fire department, is responsible for setting off the sirens on Wednesdays, right? Okay, very good. Yeah, right, understandably so, yeah, okay. Thank you. Councillor Motley?
Random thought, does the Midway siren work?
As of last Wednesday, none of them were working.
Okay, because I actually was home for once, and I'm like, and somebody's like, it didn't go off. I'm like, oh, I'm never usually home. But anyway, okay, just curious, thanks.
A fault in the communications between the base station and Adder Fire Station and all the receivers. Schedule the tech. They'll be there now and next month when they can get there.
That's why we keep the service contract. 'Cause
I
those
would
things happen.
encourage them to get here sooner than later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
guys.
thank you.
Next one's animal control, page 23.
Animal control, page 23. So what's the budget for animal control?
47,416.
And when was the last time we got an animal control report? Bueller?
Oh, Pam, do you? Pam?
When was the last
control?
time we received a report for animal control?
Oh, wow.
Well, looking at the animal control, the last one we had, for 47,000 some odd dollars, we're not getting, much service in that regard, picking up stray dogs or, those kind of things. I mean, they get released puppies and cats and they bore them out and they get a lot of volunteer work and they get a lot of people donating things, but, they run that building down there by the water sewer treatment plant, which is property owned by RGS Minerals, but we pay them $47,000. What do other communities pay? So Pam?
Their contract is up at the end of the year, so we'll be
End of this
reviewing
year?
that. Yes.
Yeah, at the end of this year. So with all due respect to PETA and those animal control, the purpose of saving animals' lives and caring for them, I get that. But at 47,000 some odd dollars a year, what is the city getting for that service? The city itself getting for that service. So as far as at the end of this year, so it's something that we have to revisit in that regard as well. So any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Johnson. I didn't see your light there.
Thank you, Mayor. And that was going to be my suggestion as we move forward, is that when we have that discussion with them, maybe it becomes a contract for service as opposed to here's your money, good luck. Maybe that way there'd be more accountability for us so that we know what's happening every month. Thank you.
Thank you, and that goes on the list for potential budget cut. Okay, thank you. Anything else about animal control? Okay, Britt, next item, please.
Page 24 is the parking monitor.
And we did talk about that at the last Committee of the Whole meeting, and how it generates enough revenue to pay for itself. I know it puts an additional burden on the police department if you don't have a parking monitor, but with the school moving to up to Rock Ridge 2909, that particular area doesn't have a parking issue anymore. So it's not that I wouldn't want to have the parking monitor at some future time, but I think I would suggest we hold that in abeyance until later on down the road, but that's just my suggestion. It's a part-time position, 20 hours a week, but I understand the argument to have one.
Calendar parking is, because daily calendar parking is coming,
know.
and there are so many streets that are so narrow that we cannot get down with a police vehicle, with a plow truck, with anything, if they're not on the right side. So compliance becomes an issue. And if it's a massive storm, the police don't have time to get out there to do that. They're working on car accidents and other things.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I know when I worked there up to this day, if it's during snow removal on a snow emergency route, the police officer has the authority to tag and tow. The parking monitor does not. They can tag and tow right away. Otherwise, you have to wait 4 hours. So if they're not writing the tickets and the parking monitor's writing the tickets, the parking monitor can notify and the record can be called and that vehicle will be towed without the police having to do this on a regular basis. So I get that argument as well. So it's a double-edged sword here. Thank you.
I do want to point out, I think there's an error. I think it's probably what you're going to look at too. 101 and 103 should be one of the two, not both of them. So there is a double up on the salary.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. I didn't see that.
I've seen these sheets so many times, and I don't know how I missed it, but I just caught it now.
So it's account ending in 433, dues and subscriptions. So could I just understand, or we all just understand what those are for $3,500?
That's their ticket system. They have a ticket writer system that looks like a cell phone with a little printer on top of it.
Yep.
So they take a picture of everything, and that's the cost of that system. And it also is the system where you pay your parking tickets, so you go online and pay. It's that system.
So didn't we purchase that? I thought we purchased that, or was
Purchase
it
the
leased?
equipment, but not the,
So so is that like more like software?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And cloud storage.
Got
So all
it.
the tickets have to be in there for so many years according to data practices and.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Motley, and then we'll bring up Mr. Duranko. Councilor Motley.
So do we have a hard time retaining a parking monitor? And how long does a parking monitor stay in employment before they potentially quit or move to another position that opens in the city of Virginia?
About a year.
About a year on average, she said.
And then how long between them actually making it a year and transferring out before another one gets hired? I'm trying to figure out if it's cost beneficial for us when they,
How long is vacated before you
right,
replace?
and move to another job within the city.
Depends on what's open. They have to be qualified. I mean, the person has to be qualified for whatever they're going into. So it depends on what's open and what.
Sherry, what do you think?
You know what, I shouldn't say just a year really fast, because in the past, we've had a retired police officer who actually was doing our part-time parking meter monitor for quite some time. He probably was 4 or 5 years, where he finally said, okay, I'm done, I'm retired. But most recently, the last couple people have been about a year longevity in that position, and then this time, it's been definitely going on almost a year. since we filled this.
And the hours they were working is part-time up to 20 hours a week. And the, not that you're trying to establish revenue stream, but, the enforcement action that a parking monitor takes does cover the costs associated with what we pay. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is that correct, Sherry? Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Motley. Mr. Duranko, did you have a comment with respect to the parking monitor position?
Yes, hello, everybody. I'm a snowplow operator, I'm an equipment operator, I sweep the streets and everything else. Without this parking monitor, it is horrendous. I can't get on streets with my grader, we can't have plow trucks get down the streets, and if I'm not mistaken, the tickets that are handed out from this individual, don't they pay his salary?
They do.
Or their salary?
They do.
So we had this vacated this spring, and it was horrible this spring trying to get down. And the fire departments also ran into this, where they can't get down the streets with their fire trucks. I mean, if you guys want to open it up and not give anybody, just give us the okay to push them cars out of the way that are legally parked, I'm there. Okay, I'll hook up on that bad boy, because this is ridiculous. People do not respect parking. And now we're going to start sweeping streets, and calendar parking is in effect. If they're on both streets, I can't get through with the sweeper. And I can't turn around and come from the other side and back in. It just doesn't work that way. So I really appreciate if you guys would really get this job back into play, because it does pay for itself. And it helps us, it helps the police department, it helps the fire department, it helps everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duranko. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, anything else on the parking monitor? Councilor Beyondich.
You, and I hear your frustration, as I had witnessed an ambulance trying to get to a home. They were able to get to the home, but they couldn't continue down the street because they're parked on both sides. So they have to back all the way up the street onto 9th Avenue, which is not safe. And I did ask at the other meeting, for the flexibility of hours. So people are used to having that 9 to 5, they're going to get nailed, but after 5, and I understand the time of the street, of the parking change, but I do feel it's important also just for the safety and for the ambulance and fire trucks to be able to get down our narrow streets. Thank you.
And we have been, we do have, not to point out Lindsay, but we have one of our former parking monitors here, and she worked very, very irregular hours, which is what we wanted, and it worked because it was not a set schedule, because you don't always know that's always Tuesday at 9, they're gonna be right here. That's not the way it was. It was whenever they got out there, and it's 24/7. Parking, calendar parking is enforced 24/7.
Thank you. Anybody else? Parking monitor?
I will correct the wage on that sheet for the next meeting. I apologize for that too.
Okay, what's the next one? Street and highways?
Public Works.
Public Works,
Which is a
okay.
lot of different funds. It's streets, ice and snow removal, trucks and equipment, capital outlay, street lighting, traffic signals, Public Works garage, Public Works equipment maintenance, and Public Works office.
Okay, so I'll start real quickly, lay the foundation, is that I can't see where we can cut anything in Public Works as far as personnel goes. It's just not, they're spread way too thin. With all hands on deck in the wintertime, they do such great work. We're looking to cut other places, but, we're pretty thin there. And we do have on the agenda coming up, on the council agenda, hiring another mechanic. Been way behind on the maintenance, as Mr. Rosvid, our Public Works Director, indicated that, we have, when we contract out these services for mechanics that they can't get the work done, it's a heck of a lot more money, and two maintenances outside the realm of their ability to do it almost pays for half a salary in 1 year. So I think that we have to take a strong look at what we're doing with Public Works. So that being said, we'll go to Councilor Paulson.
Mayor, real quick, I know we have a deadline here. So item 103, there's an additional increase of 27,000 for part-time. Could we have that explained?
Gary?
So sorry. Yes. We do hire a summer student help during the summer, so that's part of it. And I can get a detailed, if you want me to.
Yeah, I don't think we spent nearly as much as we thought we were going to. We didn't have enough applicants, but we can take a look at that. I do want to point out also, we did, in the original budget, we had planned for 6 repair crew positions. We only have 5 repair crew positions right now. So we had proffered with the department head not filling that 6th repair crew position, but filling the 5th mechanic. Those were the 2 vacant positions we have. This is 1 repair crew and 1 mechanic, and we want the mechanic, we will not fill the repair crew one.
So the mechanic was the higher priority, of course.
Correct.
So the compromise was not to replace a repair crew at this time for 2024, but the recommendation to hire the mechanic.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have Mr. Rossfit, our Public Works Director, here if you wanted to talk to him about that.
We made a very compelling argument at the committee of the whole meeting, and I think unless we don't need him to come up, I think we're pretty clear on that particular position, I think, as a council. Councilor Paulson, again.
So, okay, again, if we could just have that 20, I just want to understand why that increased. Then under the other professional services, again, column, account 319, it's increasing by 25,000 from 15,000 to 40,000. I'd like to understand what that is for and why. Then on salaries for snow removal, it's an increase of $50,000. Is that because we had a bad snow year last year? Maybe anticipating it could be that this year?
I'm hoping not, but yes.
Okay, and then on the street lighting, it's on page 26, account 601, the lease payment, does Amoresco cover any of that? And will that be offset by the Amoresco contract that
By the DPU transfer.
Right.
If you'll remember on the revenue sheet, we had a DPU transfer in, that covers that. They pay us back for the cost savings they realize from our streetlights being LED.
So is that recognized at all
Yes.
in these worksheets? Okay.
It's in the general fund.
It's in
so
the general
It
fund.
just goes into that big pot.
It is hard to,
It's hard, it's confusing.
okay. Thank you, Mayor. And that was all the bullet points I had quickly on that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Paulson. So, anything else on Public Works? Okay, the next item is going to be Culture and Recreation, is that correct?
No, community development.
Oh, Community Development, okay, we can do that one. I think we're not going to be able to get any more done today because we have a 5 o'clock public hearing, an assessment hearing at 5 o'clock. So let's get through this one first.
that'd be a great
And
start.
for those of you who are waiting for the rest of them, we apologize, but want to make sure we drill down on each individual one of these. So the next budget meeting will continue on. Britt, under the next item.
Under community development, we have the building official, the senior administrative coordinator, the instruction codes inspector, the community development coordinator, and the rental code housing inspector.
Okay.
This one also is revenue generating, so this one does bring in fees and fines and permits. They have made a suggestion from the department heads that we look at our building permit cost. Our building permit costs haven't been updated since 1988. So.
Run that
it might
by
be
me one more time?
1988.
Would you write that down?
Please.
Wow, okay, thank you. Okay. All right. That's it for
That's
that?
it for that one. Then we just get into culture and recreation, so then we move on to the next page.
So the next one would be Culture and Recreation.
Good stopping point if you'd like to stop here.
So does Culture and Recreation include the park and
Park, recreation, library.
Park and Recreation and Library?
Yep, senior center is the first one. Their allocation is 14.9. That's basically, I believe, for the utilities. Isn't that correct, Sherry?
Sorry, what was that?
Senior center, $14,900. That's the utilities for the senior center. The youth center repairs, we had budgeted 10,000. I think everybody might have saw the email we got today that the Lyric is interested in finally exercising their option to purchase the building for next year.
Yeah, I see here, if I may, we do have a letter from the Lyrics Theater, starting in January 24. They were prepared to take over the utility maintenance costs for the teen center.
Yes.
And they're willing to do that earlier, if necessary, to eliminate that cost, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and we're working to ensure that happens.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And then we do have a line item called music, which includes the city band and also the orchestra. And we need to officially decide if we're not going to fund the orchestra or not for 5,000 and city band for 10.
Okay, well, for me, city band does such outstanding work, provides a community service, and for $10,000 a year of our budget, I can't see cutting that at all. I think it's a very, it's part of culture and entertainment within the community, so the city band does yeoman's work. It doesn't cost anything, it's free to the public, so they're not costs associated with that. So for me, I'd like to keep the city band. I'm open perspective to the not funding the symphony orchestra, so. Anyone? Councilor Motley?
I completely agree. Keep the city band. They're fantastic. And the orchestra, was that for the city of Virginia or was that for the college?
The city of Virginia has been given for years, giving a donation to Mesabi Symphony Orchestra for $5,000 for them to conduct their business.
Okay, I would
That's
be
been
fine.
for about 5 years, hasn't it, no?
Yeah, a little longer than
About
that.
5 years?
For me personally, I'd be fine with the same thing as you, Mayor, keeping the city band and holding off on the 5,000 to the orchestra. Thank you.
And I know this is not, won't be a surprise to the symphony orchestra because staff did send a letter indicating that, this is something that we may have to not fund this next year. So they're aware that this could be the case moving forward. So you got that on the list as well? Thank you, Pam. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor, and I know we have to wrap up, but Britt, if I'm doing the math correctly, if we want to get to that 10% without cutting any staff at all, is my math correct that the number that we would need to cut is $386,388?
I believe so.
Okay, so just based on the one police item overtime, then I checked off a few things. So I did check off city band on that, but was that music, city band, is that all one? Okay, so I would have to minus $5,000 from what my addition was. So what I checked off, kind of my trim the fat, would be the youth center repairs, the city, it would be orchestra at 5,000, the Quad Cities Rec Center at 20,000, the cemetery at 19,650, Iron Range Youth in Action of 500, and economic development because VITA already gets the levy, and then the city has been putting in an additional 50,000. So if we held that in abeyance for year 2024, that's already just cutting those off. That's $110,234. Then if we could do something about the police overtime and then that travel expense in all departments, we very well might get to 10% levy. So I just wanted to leave you with that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And we're working toward, we're not even halfway through, so that's a very good point. Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So the Quad City Recreation, for everybody who's not aware, that's the curling club. The Quad Cities, Virginia, Eva, Gilbert, and Mountain Iron contribute to the operation of the Rock. It was a collaborative that we had for many, many years, and we've always funded that. So this might be a time of the year where we may not. So that's on the chop block.
We'll have to look at the joint powers agreement. I don't know that we can get out of it, but we'll take a look at that.
Yeah,
and see.
we'll take a look at that. I think there's been with some changes in the past. I sit on the curling board, and I think that there may be some room for a movement there. So, thank you. Okay, unless somebody wants to keep going, I think we need to stop. And we have prepare for the public hearing at 5 o'clock for the assessment. And then we'll continue by setting another budget meeting. And should we do that right now? Let's set another budget meeting at the council's convenience. And then I'll acquiesce to whatever date that's amenable to everybody.
And we certainly could do it at the committee of the whole. We do have a light agenda for next week, so we can definitely put it on there.
Did that make sense to everybody? Put on the next committee the whole agenda?
During it, because I think we only have 4 or 5 items so far.
Well, let's keep it at 4 or 5 items if we can, and then we'll be able to really get through the rest of this agenda on the budget. We'll keep a running tally of what we're asking to cut, and it's somewhat encouraging moving forward. So Everybody, please stay tuned, and we'll continue to work hard on the budget. And if you have any suggestions, those of you listening at home, those here in the audience, any other questions, concerns, or suggestions as we move forward, please don't hesitate to let our staff know, and we'll add that to our discussion items too, so. And at the committee level, obviously, there's room for appearances. If you need to get an appearance, please call ahead of time and get on the agenda, so thank you. Okay, anybody else have anything before we adjourn our committee of the whole meeting in preparation for our assessment hearing? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming. Those who are listening at home, we'll stand adjourned. It's at 4:50 p.m. Thank you.